from the College by the Lake, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Local, regional, national, and international guests discussing the issues and topics affecting the way you live are on Forum, the North Idaho College Public Forum, with your host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart.
We're most pleased today to welcome four guests from the city of Spokane to our program. I first of all welcome Sudha Nanagopal, who is a student at Meade School District, or Meade High School, and she's also the chair of the Chase Youth Commission in the city of Spokane. Welcome to our program, Sudha. And I'm very pleased as our second guest to welcome Jeff Calton, who is the member of the Spokane City Council, and he also chaired the delegation to Philadelphia for the volunteerism program that we'll be talking about today, and he was chosen by former Mayor Jack Garrity to do that. And welcome to our program. We're pleased to have you here. Our third guest today is Joanne Beanham, who is the Director of Youth Services for the City of Spokane and was also a delegate to the Philadelphia Conference. And we welcome you to the program. Delighted that you're here.
Thank you.
Our fourth guest today is Doug Floyd, who is an interactive editor of the Spokesman Review, and I've known Doug for a long time. And Doug assisted and actually was responsible for putting the program together when I requested that, and we thank you very much and welcome to our program. Ladies and gentlemen, our topic today is going to be entitled Bridging the Gap. It is a wonderful program in the Spokane that deals with youth, and a target towards the year 2000 to have 3 young people involved in the program. This all initiated in Philadelphia, that some of our guests attended, that the President of the United States and former presidents and General Powell were involved in trying to excite the American people with this program of what we can do. And as we get into the program, I want to say that I commend all of you for all the work you're doing, and others that are not with us today that are equally involved. Doug, may I start with you on the program, please? And would you tell us about what does this particular program encompass, Bridging the Gap?
Okay. Excuse me. Well, it probably all got started about 2 years ago at the national level, but we weren't necessarily hearing about that locally. I think it was in early 1997 when we began to get the word in Spokane that there was a program that was going to be held in Philadelphia in April that year, fairly short notice, that would try to bring together people around the country in a volunteer effort, private sector effort, primarily to invest themselves in dealing with the issues that would help make the youth of the nation more resilient and more resistant to some of the problem areas that we seem to hear so much about. They had, based on research, determined 5 resource areas that they felt should be present in the life of every young person to help that person grow up to be a healthy, adjusted adult. And they wanted to bring together the nation. We got the word in Spokane. It was kind of interesting. They wanted delegations to each, if I recall correctly, from each state, plus state delegations to come together for this 2 or 3 days in Philadelphia. And originally it was going to be Seattle and Vancouver from the state of Washington. You can imagine the kind of geographic reaction that got in eastern Washington, and so some people got busy, and I don't know how the people in Vancouver felt about this, but ultimately it was changed so it was Seattle and Spokane. We pulled together 10 delegates, including two students at the time, one high school student, one college student, and there were 10 of us. We went there and we came back, and after that it was a decision about how do you bring this message back to the community, how do you take it from there, and make things happen at the local level. I should point out that the national goal that was set was that they wanted to reach 2 million young people in the nation by the year 2000 with these 5 resources, and to bring those assets to bear in these young people's lives. And then we had to kind of decide what our share of that goal was going to be and get to work.
Here you are, and you're doing a wonderful job. Joanne, may I come back to you now? And as one who is involved in youth services city, and the rumor to me is that if it involves youth in Spokane, you're involved, that you're very dedicated, and I congratulate you, so you're perfect for the program. Could you take us through what Doug was speaking to about the resources and the kind of things that you're trying to get youth involved in? What are I believe there's like 5 resources.
Right. They call them resources. I kind of call them strategies. I think there are 5 ways to buffer young people against some of those problems that we want to buffer them against. The first one is access to a caring adult in their lives, meaning a mentor, a tutor, a coach, but somebody who can be a positive role model to them and help them kind of learn about life in general and be able to connect with resources in the community. The second area is safe places and structured activities, and we know from a lot of the research about when young people have difficulty, a lot of the behavior problems happen when they're not supervised, they have unstructured time. And so after school and weekends are critical times for young people. The third area is a healthy start. And I know there's a lot of discussion around the Success by Six initiative, which I think fits right into that, looking at how we mold and shape young people from 0 to 6 so that they enter school ready to learn. The fourth area is a marketable skill through effective education, meaning that when young people graduate from high school, not all of them are going to be college bound necessarily, and they still need to have a skill for the job market. And the fifth area is an opportunity to give back to their communities through service. And young people can be meaningful participants in civic life, and we need to give them every chance to do that.
I'd like to add a footnote here. I'm a member of the Education Commission of the States. There are 371 of us commissioners in the country, including the governors. And at our conference in Portland this year, the superintendent of public instruction in California indicated they have 70,000 high school students in a service learning program. And the grades are going up, dropouts just going way, way down. So it's the same kind of concept that you're dealing with. Jeff, if we could turn to you now, and you have a very important role in the city as a policymaker, and how do you perceive this program, and what is the role of the city?
Well, I was very fortunate in your introduction. You named me as the chair of this delegation. I don't consider myself the chair. I was a member of a 10-person delegation that was fortunate enough to go back to Philadelphia. And bridging the gap, as you introduced it, is our local slogan, if we want to call it that. But most of the folks that would be watching this program will probably understand the program more if you talked about America's Promise. And that was a national theme that was decided upon, and obviously we're talking about the youth of our nation right now and what our future is. And so talking about those 5 resources that Joanne just mentioned, that was the theme that we had talked about in Philadelphia. We were, of the 10 delegates that we had, as Doug mentioned, we took 2 youngsters with us, and we were the only delegation of the 50, about 100 and some delegations that were there from across the nation that had youth with them.
Is that right? The only one?
And it was very noticeable, because when we came to the presentations, our youth did our presentations for us. And then when we came back and tried to bring our community together, the slogan that Doug mentioned, 2 million by the year 2000 of kids that were touched or provided one of those 5 resources, our youngsters from our community came up with a slogan of 3,000 by 2000. And we were talking about it coming over here today, that we've actually exceeded that. We're at above 4,500 of our youth throughout our community that have been touched by one of those 5 resources. And obviously we're not going to quit. We're going to continue on. We've been also fortunate to have the city and the county behind us in our endeavors. It's a private city, public-private partnership, and I think it's very important for our youth. Bridging the Gap actually stands for Generations for America's Promise, and it was selected by our youth.
That's wonderful. I just want to congratulate you for bringing in the people that this is all about, and so I hope you got some national attention, that you were on the right track. Sudi, as a student and a very dynamic student, and congratulations on chairing the Chase Youth Commission. Give us a perspective from the students, not only for yourself but other students. How is this impacting, and how are students reacting to the program?
Well, I think in Spokane it's still building up. But for those of us who've been working on it, we see the projects, and so we know that there is something happening out there, and that's why we need the summits. It's to draw the youth attention and to show them, look, this is happening. And with the spring summit, I think that did happen. The youth did see that there is a lot going on, and they have a place to help. And so we know what we're targeting, and the youth are there who can help, and there's also the youth who need the help. So if we work together, we're going to get there much faster than if we just have one group working on it. And by working in this partnership like we have in Spokane, we're obviously targeting it the right way, because we are already doing half of what we need to do by making sure that the youth are a part of it.
I was quite overwhelmed by the numbers that were just given, about 40-some hundred are already in the program, way beyond your goal of 2,000. Sue, to tell us more about the students. Are they from all over the county and from the different schools? And
Yeah, they're from all over the county and the different schools. So everybody is seeing this and really getting into it.
do you have a certain age group in joining the program?
Well, when you say joining the program, do you mean
Or participating?
participating and actually putting it on?
Yeah.
I think it's more upper junior high and high school level, because they're really the ones who are into the leadership and are ready to work on a project like this and provide the leadership for the young
Yes,
men.
Jeff.
What we've done, when we came back from Philadelphia, we found that we had an awful lot of agencies or organizations, nonprofit and profit, that were providing some of these resources already. But they were all out there on their own.
No coordination.
No coordination. And so what we solicited, and fortunately for our community, we have the Health Improvement Partnership, which becomes our umbrella organization that channels all these youngsters and all those that want to become involved in bridging the gap for our community together. So we were fortunate in that. And I would caution those that are beginning their programs now to look for someone to bring in all of those little agencies and tentacles that are out there providing these resources, bring them together so that we're not duplicating efforts.
Could I just jump
Yes,
in and
sure.
say that the wonderful thing that, as Jeff mentioned, about having the Health Improvement Partnership, or HIP as we call it, available, is that their whole approach has been to promote community health of a broader than just physical health sense by taking a look at the resources that exist in a community and acting as a catalyst to bring them together with what they may need and fill in some gaps. And so it was a natural linkage for HIP to step in and become the guide agency in this project, because that's what they were doing, and then they could take a part of their work and focus it then on accelerating the work that was being done with regard to programs that affected youth. And so they've just been critical for that, but it was a natural role for HIP, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Joanne, as someone who's in an official position working on youth services and so forth, could you take us a little bit further and identify some of the, I guess where I'm going is that there are a number of organizations that Jeff has indicated that already exist, and so you are trying to coordinate those and see what each one's doing, and maybe you can share a much greater breadth of what's going on. But also, are you tapping youth in activities that are outside of organizations that somehow are lost in that process?
Well, I think, maybe coordination isn't exactly the right word. I think because that sounds very top-down to me. And really, this is a bottom-up process. And there are many efforts going on in our community, and it can just be a group of parents who've decided that there are some children in their community who don't have those structured activities after school, and they could open up something in their garage with computers and mentors and the whole bit. And that would be considered a discovery by our Health Improvement Partnership. And it's called a gap discovery because it is youth-oriented and fits within the 5 strategies. So those kind of things are counted as equally important as an organization like Big Brothers and Sisters, who does mentorship and matches kids and adults together. So all of those are valued. As far as involving young people go, I think that's been a prime role for the Youth Commission, because we do have so much interaction with young people that we use our connections with them to expand even farther. And so the young people who work with us directly are recruiting other young people from their schools, from their church youth groups, from whatever organizations they participate in, to be part of the solution. So they can start their own projects, or they can help an existing organization with a project.
I have a suspicion that Spokane is a somewhat different position than some of the other communities. In a compliment to Spokane, is there was already a lot of structure with the Chase Youth Commission and other groups. So did that, I'll go back to Suda, does that help that you already had some things in place that you could use to implement this program?
I think it does, because for youth, they don't really, it takes a little time to get them involved in something and really get them attached to something. And since we already had that with the Chase Youth Commission, there's already a focus group of youth who are attached to a project like this. And because of that, we can draw in more people and more students, especially, through that. And by having it already established, it's not something new that people are still kind of suspicious about. And
I suspect that's one of the reasons why you're already past that number of 3,000.
It probably has a lot to do with it, but a lot of it also is the youth that want to become committed to something in our community. And I think that when you look nationwide, and we're looking at going back to statistics, follow-on conference to see how all the communities have been doing in about a year and a half. And it'll be interesting to see if our approach, which was to involve the youth from bottom up instead of top down, and we've been very successful at that because of our youth, and see what other communities have not done as well because they've gone from top down.
Seems very wise. I'd like to get right to the heart of the program for our viewers, particularly that don't live in the Spokane area. We are in a number of states, and one of my goals here today is to hopefully excite other communities to come on board, and I'm sure that you're willing for them to contact you and you could provide them some information. Let's talk about some of the activities that are going on since you returned from Philadelphia that may be somewhat different or new, some projects or examples of youth and what they're doing. It's an open question to whomever.
You want to talk about the summits?
Well, yeah, the youth summits themselves were meant to generate a lot of energy around these 5 areas, and we invited youth and adults to work together. That's been the structure from day one.
Can I just interrupt? How many summits have you had so far?
We've had 2. We started with a small one several months after we first got back from Philadelphia, and there were about 250 participants. That was in October of '97, and then we followed that up with another summit in May of '98, and we had between 800 and 1,000 people. And we tried to get equal numbers of youth and adults because, you know, we really believe that we have to work hand in hand on this. And as the young people said, it's generations for America's Promise. So they're not expecting us as adults to hand them anything. They want to work with us. So it's very exciting, too, because they have so much energy, some fresh ideas, and maybe what they need in the way of support from us is some exposure to how do you get things done in our particular community? You know, who do you go to for certain things? Who has these resources that you need, whether it's financial help, volunteer help? So making the connections.
Your summit produced something really interesting that I was involved in, and that was Hands Across the Board for Human Rights, and it happened this summer. And a number of college students in particular told me they'd been involved in helping with the summit, and they shared their enthusiasm and energy to go on to do another project. Doug, you?
I'm sorry, I was just going to say one of the things that was really exciting to me about the May Summit was not only did we try to have equal numbers of adults and youth at the summit itself, but also in the seating at the tables. And one of the activities was for the young people and their seniors to talk together about what needs were and to engage in some promise making, making some commitments to deal with particular issues in the future. And I talked to more adults that came away from that activity and the participation in it, just really wowed by the conversations they'd have with young people, really impressed. It really got their attention, got down to cases. It was great.
We didn't get there naturally, though, on the second summit. You know, we were criticized by our youth for some of the activities that we conducted during our first summit back in October. And fortunately, we listened to our youth and had them come in and participate and actually program and fund and coordinate the second summit. So it worked out very well.
Maybe Suda wants to come in here at this point. Can you give us some examples of the difference between the first summit and the second? What are some of the things you wanted for our viewers to hear too? What went on at particularly the second summit? What made it successful?
Well, particularly at the second summit, it was youth-led. Each of us, every section had a youth person starting it off and an adult with us. I did the beginning, and then some of the other Chase Youth Commission members led some of the other parts of the summit. So by just having that interaction right there, the youth were leading it and they were also participating, and so there was already a little bit of a partnership building right there. And
give us some examples, any of you, of what went on at the summit exactly. Did you have speakers? Did you have workshops? What did you actually do at the summit?
We had both. There were workshops and there were speakers. You can go into that with more depth.
We had entertainment and we had hands-on activities, and I think one of the things we heard from the young people is don't talk at us so much. You need to engage us. So we had a community service fair at the tail end of the second summit where young people were addressing community needs with small projects right there on the spot. And we had karaoke going on at the same time too, which made it fun. So we tried to deal more with their sense of what's comfortable, what keeps them energized and interested, and rather than with adults, I think we can sit and listen, and we're kind of used to being in boring meetings, and we just accept that. But young people need more than the lectures and the talk. So, and it was very helpful for all of us. I think everybody felt more energetic when they left.
And I assume from that success you're headed towards another summit at some time in the future.
Well, it hasn't been decided yet. We may, but I think, you know, one of the things we really want to focus on is getting young people engaged in the activities of the community and getting them to try to research within their own school, their own neighborhood, their own community, what they can do that would try to increase those 5 resources, right. 1 or more of those resources.
Let's move into that. I just would like to share with the viewers some other things that are going on. What are some of the things that the youth are taking from these different programs or from the summits? What are they out there doing in the community now on any of these different areas of resources? What are some things that youth are contributing today that probably would not have happened without this, what you call the Bridging the Gap?
I don't know whether this is a direct answer to your question, Tony, because it's hard to say this wouldn't have happened without Bridging the Gap. I think that it's a much broader thing than just Bridging the Gap. I think Bridging the Gap is a part of an overall attitude and network of community activities that are going on that work together and they work off of one another. I think one of the things that's happening in Spokane is, and Suda's a perfect example. She's chairman of the Chase Youth Commission. Well, the Chase Youth Commission has always dealt, correct me if I'm wrong, Joanne, this is your bailiwick, but the Chase Youth Commission has always dealt with issues involving youth in the community, but it's only been recently, the last few years, that it's actually been chaired. I mean, it's a combination of adults and youth, but it's only been the last couple of years that youth have actually taken the ongoing role of chairmanship, and then you see at the United Way and HIP itself a growing interest in involving young people at the table as board members and playing a legitimate role in decision making and policy making in agencies, nonprofits, and things like that. The number, and it's hard to pinpoint any one, but the number of activities going on in the community that HIP is in touch with and doing its work in discoveries and linking resources together with programs that have needs to meet the concerns that involve youth, those things are in place. And I think that the more we have these kinds of activities, the more awareness raising continues to happen, and young people are taken more and more seriously. I see young folks in the community now that I have come to know through the Bridging the Gap activities. We've got credibility and knowledge and understanding with one another that we didn't have before. So I think that can only help.
Opens up lines of communication and growth.
Exactly. And to say that just this one thing led specifically to this one particular contact is hard to say, but I think it's all part of a big package.
Yeah. Obviously, we can't do it without some kind of adult assistance. And we constantly look for assistance through corporations, nonprofits, or profits, the education system. Some of our universities within our community, the kids, I call them kids, they're undergraduate students, have come together as mentors, and they've gone down into our local grade schools and elementary schools, and they provide tutor services for it. We've had folks in our medical arenas come forth and provide eyeglasses and eye care and dental care and medical care. And that's when I say when we've got these over 4,500 kids that have been touched by one of these 5 strategies or resources. It's been provided by some of the corporations and businesses within our community. And so we can't do it all without the adult assistance. But for the most part, as Doug mentioned, it's driven from the bottom.
I know a number of people at Gonzaga University, as an example, and some of the students there, particularly in student government, have organized activities and gone out and volunteered in some of the schools and other programs. And I believe that was as a result of what you've been doing in this program, as they indicate to me. Suda, I have a rather personal question for you. We're so glad you're here today, and the level of involvement, you're a role model for other youth. But as this indicates in the program and the literature, one cannot get involved in such programs without getting something for themselves. What has all this done for you personally? How has it changed you to be so active and to contribute and to share with others that you probably would not have got to know if you'd not been so active?
Well, I think partially it really helps me just understand what's happening around me, and that's what's going to happen with anybody who's active in their community. They really feel like they're a part of the community, and I feel more like I have a connection instead of just being a separate unit and just another one of the youth who's attending Meade High School. I'm actually a youth who's helping to implement some of the programs that are going to be affecting Spokane, and it's more on a personal level. I would say it's really just helped me grow and develop my ideas, and that's
it creates even another level of maturity. I can see it in you. And before the program, we were talking about some things, and you were very sophisticated in your comments and responses. I would like for you to also share with the youth that are watching. This is an opportunity on the air to do this. I want to give you the opportunity. What would you say to the young people who are cynical and say, nothing changes, we can make no difference in life? How would you try to bring them out of that apathy and cynicism?
Well, I would say that, obviously they're wrong, because we can make a difference, and you have to go through the right channels, and that's the only thing that youth have a hard time with, is finding those channels. And that's partially what Bridging the Gap is helping these people find channels for them to make the changes that they want. And with the Chase Youth Commission, this is the perfect outlet, because you're right there in the city government and now in the county government as well. And so I see, the budget and everything with that I can make a difference in that sense. And so for the youth who believe that there is no way to change things, they need to just step up and say, well, I want to change something, so I'm going to go out there and do it. You can't just sit back and say, well, you can't change anything, because obviously you can't if you're just sitting in your chair and saying that.
And if they contact you, you can prove to them the changes are coming. And I'm going to invite them to do that, and you can give them that data, and even affecting budgets and programs. On that note, I have to bring the program to conclusion. I wish we had more time. All four of you, I thank you for coming over from Spokane and to North Idaho College and being with us and talking about this exciting program. Congratulations to you and good luck in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you've found this program most interesting and stimulating, and we'd invite people in other communities to join in such kind of program with our youth. And next week we shall talk about another issue that we think will be of pertinence and interest to you. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
The North Idaho College Public Forum was videotaped live from the studios of Instructional Technology on the campus of North Idaho College for viewing at this more appropriate time. We invite you to join us again next week for another all-new edition of the North Idaho College Public Forum on this public television station.